I'm David Karofsky with the Family Business Consulting Group. I'm here with one of my colleagues, Rob Sligh, who wrote an article called Succeeding at Succession. And today we're going to talk about family business succession and how important it really is. So Rob, welcome and thanks for joining us today.
Great to be with you.
So Rob, let's just get right into it. I have kind of a list of questions here. I'm just going to fire away and let's just get right at it. So first of all, give me some context here. What kinds of family enterprise transitions are you talking about? And what do you encounter with when it comes to transition?
It's hardly an exaggeration to say that when a family business succeeds from one generation to the next in terms of ownership and leadership, that two miracles have occurred. And I think, it's fair to say they've overcome the odds. When we look at it, only about 30% of family businesses make it to the second generation. And when we think about that second generation, we visualize that the kids have grown up in the same family with their parents, the founders. Often as teenagers, they've worked, with the frontline people in the business. They've developed a real heart for the business. They've seen the struggle that their parents have gone through in that building stage of the business in the first generation. By the time we get to the third generation, or cousin generation, as we often call it, only some of the extended family members work in the business typically.
Yeah.
The cousins grew up in different families with different parents. They may have different goals. And only about 3% make it to the fourth generation. By that time and beyond, family size and complexity can increase exponentially.
Yep. I often find that one of the things I've been dealing with lately is these families also have to reinvent themselves. That the chances are that first generation business and the fourth generation business, they're not doing the same craft. And so those generations, part of the succession is that you got to be able to reinvent the business given the times, whether it's times like right now or just industry changes and what's happening in the market. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
Rob, what types of questions should these enterprising families be asking themselves?
Yeah, good questions can be things like, what's our purpose in staying together as a family enterprise? Do we have a common purpose? There might or might not be, for example, shared values or beliefs about life and legacy, how we will invest our time and money. Do we feel stronger together culturally, competitively, financially than if we went our separate ways? Or do we have different values and interests that guide at least some of us to go, in a different direction?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I'm sure we both talk about when we work with our clients is this concept of managing expectations. It's been a pet peeve of mine for years, inside business and even outside business. And I think it's really critical when it comes to setting expectations in a family business. So as we think about that, what are some examples of owner roles and responsibilities and expectations that some of these families should be setting with respect to succession planning?
Yes, ownership. Ownership it's an active endeavor. Whether or not it's combined with leadership can be an entirely separate thing.
Right.
Of course, owners elect the board of directors. Through the board, the owners influence top leader succession, direction of the company itself. Owners properly expect information about the business. They are emotionally connected with the business, so there's emotional value that they're deriving from the business. They expect leadership accountability. They properly expect a competitive return for the risk that they've undertaken in the business, and options for liquidity that also take into account the health of the business itself.
Yep, absolutely. We often talk about this concept of growth, risk, profitability, and liquidity, and it's a great it's a great concept for families to be thinking about what's your growth goals, what's your risk level or risk tolerance, what profitability you're looking for, and what liquidity are you looking for, and being aligned on that particularly is very, very important. Let's shift gears and talk a little bit about boards with respect to succession and being successful here. What role do you see the board of directors playing in this?
Well, first of all, the value of it. I mean, years after creating a board, family business owners often say that it was one of the best decisions they ever made to have a board with independent directors. And that's because of the value that they begin to give, in sharing experiences and helping owners succeed.
Yep.
I think the way owners often organize the family side is to have regular family meetings or family councils with the goal of processing family perspectives. So ideally, they can talk in one voice to the board, and the board can focus on helping with the business. The board itself may include family owners. Um, the board's role is to see that the company is well led. It supports and guides leaders to achieve owner goals, also taking into account all stakeholders.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think also boards, part of the value of the board is they may challenge the status quo a little bit when it comes to succession. So, for example, it may be assumed, it may not be, but it may be assumed that a family member may be the heir apparent to lead the next generation in a family business, when that may not always be the right choice. And so I think having a board and having that outside perspective, particularly with independent directors, can be helpful in suggesting, maybe it's an outside non-family executive that comes in and runs the next generation of the family business. So I think boards can be very helpful there. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly so.
Uh, couple more questions for you. How do successful family enterprises think about business leadership succession? What's on their mind?
Well, one good question is to ask whose dream is it that this family enterprise will continue into another generation? If the now gen and the next gen share a dream, it's a foundation for considering the question of leadership succession. They may or may not, so this needs to be probed and understood. Next gens with a passion for the family business, they might have worked there as teenagers, they got a passion for it, they want to be in the family business, can nevertheless benefit themselves and the company by working elsewhere after they graduate from college, earning their own promotions, developing their own self-confidence, and from the perspective of others, confidence in them,
Yeah.
that they can make it on their own, that it's not a paternalistic situation. This guy went out, or gal, and earned their own promotions, their own stripes, succeeded on their own, and then coming back into the family business under those conditions can be very valuable to the business and have a very good impact.
Yes.
Sometimes businesses, and you touched on this a few moments ago, can become very large and complex.
Yep.
And often there's a role for non-family CEOs, maybe between the generations, or
Yep.
sometimes replacing a track at the CEO level for family members, because it's just become so big.
Yeah.
And of course, uh, owners can still be active owners. Some owners can be on the board if they're qualified. Often businesses reserve a role like chairman of the board for the family.
Yeah.
But the business is like a golden goose. Owners and boards keep the goose healthy, able to continue laying those golden eggs by seeing to it that the business has dedicated and effective leadership.
Well, I think you're spot on, and what you're saying actually makes me think of kind of two common questions and phrases that we often use in the world of family business consulting. And the first question is, what comes first, the family or the business? And there isn't a right or wrong answer here, and it depends on every family. Sometimes the family wants to put the family first, and sometimes they know that they got to put the business first. And it also depends on the cycle of the business. The second phrase is, if the family takes care of the business will take care of the family, and that's really going to the kind of the golden goose concept. And so knowing what leader is best positioned to, to lead the business into the next generation is a very, very important consideration that I think we would agree that families really need to take into thought when doing this. Rob, in your mind, is succession an event or a process? And if it's a process, how long should families be really planning to take when going through an endeavor like this?
Oh, it is a process, and it's a long-term process indeed. And boards can be very helpful in this, bringing that objective view to the process. But long-term planning, asking what goals are, whose dream is it, and the associated questions about what are your goals and what do you want to accomplish. Bringing those things together in a way that satisfies each individual's goals, and it may turn out, and we love to see it, that family enterprise continues for generations.
Well, we should be rooting for that, right? I mean, that's what we want to see.
Yeah, we sure do.
It
And
is.
one of the interesting facts is that family businesses in general outperform public companies, and they outperform private equity owned companies in the long run. And gosh, when you think about it, how wonderful it is for communities, employees, and families when family enterprises find a way to succeed for generations.
I agree. I agree with you 100%. And they are the lifeblood of our economy. They represent a huge percentage of our GDP, a huge percentage of our employment is coming from family businesses. And so you're right. We want to help these businesses sustain from generation to generation. So Rob, this has been great. It's been great to speak with you. I encourage people to visit our website at thefbcg.com to learn more about us. And also, you can check out Rob's article, Succeeding at Succession. So thanks, everybody, and have a great day.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everybody.